we go. All right. John chapter 6 is where we are this morning. I always like audience participation sorts of things. I like it when you guys talk and when you're part of things. So I want to start today by asking you a question. What do you think is the most famous painting in the entire world? If you had to nominate one painting as the most famous, what do you think it would be? Somebody tell me, go. Oh, the Mona Lisa, yeah. The Mona Lisa is widely acclaimed as the most famous painting ever. More people know it. There have been more copies of it. It is the most highly insured painting ever. It has the highest price tag on it. The Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci between 1503 and 1506. It was on display at the Louvre in Paris. It has been on display in the Louvre in Paris since 1797. Da Vinci was an Italian, of course, but the King of France liked the painting so much he took it. And so it ended up in French hands, and Napoleon liked it so much he kept it in his bedroom for a while. It's been around, and it's been around for a long, long time. But the interesting thing is that it wasn't always the most famous painting in the world. When it was first painted, the people in the art world really liked it. The people in the art world appreciated it a lot, but it wasn't widely known beyond that. There was actually one event that made the Mona Lisa the most famous painting in the world. Can anyone guess? Does anyone know what made it famous? Pardon me? Somebody stole it. Yeah, exactly. An Italian national decided in 1911 that the French shouldn't have an Italian master's painting. And so he went into the Louvre and he stole it. And it was gone. For 2 years, they didn't know where it was. And it created this big ruckus. And it was at the time when newspapers were just really popular. And so there were all kinds of stories about the Mona Lisa and pictures of the Mona Lisa. And then people started painting replicas of the Mona Lisa because they didn't have the real one. And it just exploded. The Mona Lisa became really famous because it was stolen. And it was recovered 2 years later in 1914, put back in the Louvre, and you can go see it today. Again, though, the interesting thing to me about it is that it became famous because they lost it. It became famous because it was something they didn't have anymore, and they kept saying, what a beautiful painting. We didn't appreciate it. Well, we had it. And that's what made it so famous. I think that happens lots of times in our life, right? We don't really understand how important things are until we lose them. The old saying is, you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? And I think that happens lots of times in all kinds of areas of our lives. I think it happens spiritually as well. I think sometimes we don't understand what we've got in the blessings of God. And I guess the challenge in every part of our life is to not wait till we've missed it, but to actually see what we have right now. Actually value what you have right here. Don't wait until it's gone before you say, oh, I should have paid more attention. And so when it comes to spiritual things, what do you have right now that's really, really important? What do you have right now that you might not think much about? What has been offered to you that you might have missed? In the Gospel of John, John goes a long way to talk about what Jesus means to his people. In fact, Jesus himself goes a long way to do that. In the Gospel of John, 8 different times, Jesus uses a comparison to help us understand what we've been given by him. 8 different times he says, I am the, and then he fills in the blank with an analogy that's supposed to teach us something about what he's given us. And so what I want to do today is simply go through those 8 statements. I'm going to clump some of them together into piles so you can see how they relate to one another. And I'm hoping you'll grab a Bible and follow along and read these statements. And by the end, here's all I hope we have. I hope we have an appreciation for what Jesus offers us, not just in eternity, not just with salvation, but every single day. What does Jesus offer us? Jesus says himself, here's what I've come to offer you. I have come to offer you life. Now, you might think, well, what do you mean by life? I mean, you're saying he was the reason we were born? Well, no, not really. Jesus has come to offer you an abundant life. That's what he says in John chapter 10, verse 10. I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Every single one of us is looking for an abundant life. Every single one of us is trying to make our life feel meaningful or important or valuable. We're trying to make our best life, as we like to say now. We're trying to live our best life, as people say. And we try and do that in lots of different ways, don't we? We use a lot of different things to try and make ourselves feel good about who we are and about what we're doing and how things are going. I know some people who just live for events. I know some people that'll drive hundreds of miles to go to a concert just because going to concerts makes them feel alive and like they're living a good life. I know some people who will make plans around things like the Calgary Stampede. There's all kinds of people out there this week. The Stampede makes them feel alive. And I'm not even making fun of this. I do the same thing. Yesterday, the Snowbirds held their last performance in Moose Jaw with the Tudor Jets and everything. And if you know anything about me, you know since I was 6 years old, I've loved the Snowbirds. I've been obsessed with the Snowbirds. So yesterday I decided I was going to the last performance. I didn't have tickets. I was going to have to sit on the grid road, but I went anyway. I got up at 7:30 in the morning. I put on all my motorcycle gear. Yesterday, right? Full helmet, leather jacket, riding pants, boots, and gloves at 37 degrees. And I sweat like a dog. I thought I was going to die. But I went and stood on a grid road north of Moose Jaw, and I watched the Snowbirds, and I've got a sunburn. I can't even touch the back of my legs hardly. And I'm so happy I did it because it made me feel good. I got to see the Snowbirds. That meant something to me. Every one of us has gaps in our life, a gap in our life that we're trying to fill. We're trying to make our life feel really important. So some people do that with events and things. Other people do it in other ways. They try and fill that gap with shopping. I have this picture. I found this picture in a story about the 60s one time. I don't remember what the story was, but there's this picture of this girl in the story. Look at her looking at those boots in the store window. I just saved that picture because I thought, well, isn't that interesting? That girl in 1963 or 4 or 8 or whatever is looking at those boots thinking those are the coolest things ever, right? And I'm thinking now she's probably a grandma. She'd never wear those boots now. Well, I don't know, maybe she would. Maybe they're back in style. I'm not sure. But we try and fill things. She's just longing for those boots in that picture, isn't she? She's just like, I wish I had those boots. Then you buy those boots and they don't really fill the gap, right? We have people all the time. The clothes come into the clothing exchange. Ask Mary. Clothes come into the clothing exchange all the time. People have bought something they thought would look good, make them feel good, would be really great. Come into the clothing exchange, still have the tags on them. They haven't even tried them on. Happened last week. A buddy of mine brought some pants. Bought the pants. I've got lots of pants. I don't need them. He donated them with the tag still on them. But he likes shopping. He doesn't like pants. He likes shopping because buying things makes him feel good. I have a buddy who almost every week tells me everything he's bought that week and brags about how much he spent. And then the next week he'll call me back and he'll say, I've got so much junk. I'm sick of looking after all this junk. And then he goes and buys more stuff because the buying tries to fill that gap that he's got. Something is being met by doing that, right? Addictions work that way, right? People get addicted because they're trying to feel good about their life. So alcohol makes them feel good for a while, or drugs gives them an escape for a while. My point is, we've got a gap that we're missing, and we want something. Everybody wants something that they don't have. I say this lots of times, but I think it's funny. Here in Canada, we dream, everybody wants to be somewhere else. It's the same problem, right? We always dream about being somewhere that we're not. In Canada, Canadians go to Olive Garden and pretend we're in Italy. I saw a story the other day. What do Italians do? What restaurants do Italians have over there? One of them is called the Old Wild West. Italians go to Wild West restaurants so they can pretend they're Texans. Right? We're all trying to find something that makes us feel like, ooh, I had an experience, I feel good. C.S. Lewis, the famous theologian, once said, "Human history is the long and terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which makes him happy." That's the problem, right? We're trying to fill this gap with something other than God. Blaise Pascal in the 1600s famously said, "There's a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every person, and it can never be filled by created things. It can only be filled by God, made known through Jesus Christ." There is a God-shaped vacuum in us, and we've got to know Jesus to fill that hole. And so Jesus says, "I've come to give you that life. I have come to fill that hole. I've come to give you the thing you can't find anywhere else." So in the I am statements of Jesus, he says, "I am the bread and I am the vine." John chapter 6, verse 35, he's talking, he says this, John 6, 35. I've already kind of given you the whole statement, but he adds a little to it. He says, John 6, 35, he said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. He's not talking physical thirst or physical hunger, of course. He's saying, if you find me, you will be satisfied. If you find me, you will find the gap that you're trying to fill in your life. You'll find it filled up. If you find me, you will find everything you need. In John 15, in a really long analogy, he says that, John 15:1, he says, "I am the true vine and my Father's the gardener." He goes on to say that if you stay connected to me, I will give you everything you need. Just like a branch connected to a vine or to a tree, the branch gets everything it needs from the vine. He says, if you stay with me, find me, listen to me, walk with me, I will fill you up. I will sustain you. I will give you everything you need. You'll be productive. You'll have a life you couldn't have imagined. Everything will be better if you find me. I am the bread, and I am the vine. I'm the one who's going to give you the life you're looking for. That's what Jesus says. He goes on from there, though, and he uses another couple of analogies that I think are really interesting. He says next, he says, I am the security you're looking for. And the pictures he uses here, and we'll read them in a second, he says in John 8, verse 12, I am the light. And then he says in John 10, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. Again, let's just read them real quick so you hear them. John chapter 8, verse 11. Then Jesus spoke again to the people and said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will live in the light of life. Think about little kids and night lights, right? Everything is a little bit better. You feel a little more secure if you're a little kid and you have a night light. I just saw Owen hit Gage for some reason. You can ask him about that in a moment. Everything feels a little better. It's not as scary when it's not all dark, right? Everything feels a little better when you're walking around at night with a flashlight, right? A graveyard isn't as scary at noon as it is at midnight. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And what he's saying by that is, I'm coming to give you guidance, and I'm coming to give you security. I'm coming to show you where you're going. I'm coming so that you don't have to be so scared. I am the light of the world. And that light is important. It's interesting too, and this is just a side note, but Jesus tells this, he says, I am the light of the world during the festival that the Jews had to celebrate the fact that God led them in the Exodus. You'll remember God led them in the daytime by a pillar of smoke. Wherever this pillar of smoke went, that's where God's people went. That's how he led them. And at nighttime, he led them by what? A pillar of fire, a light. They followed that light, and that's how they got to where they were going. And Jesus says, during their festival that celebrates how God led them with light, Jesus now says, I'm the light. Follow me, and I'll take you where you want to go. I'll take you where you need to go. I'll take you where you're scared to go. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And Jesus says also in chapter 10, I am the good shepherd. We'll read just a section of that. Again, this is a long passage, but let's read the portion down in verses 11. He says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees a wolf coming, he abandons them and runs away. When the wolf scatters the flock, or when the wolf attacks the flock, it scatters. The man runs because he's not the shepherd and doesn't care for the sheep. But I'm the good shepherd. I know my sheep. My sheep know me. We don't have a lot of shepherds around here, but we've got some ranchers. We've got some people with cattle. Tammy knows her cattle. Tammy knows which ones are doing well and which ones aren't, which ones are sick, which ones are struggling, which ones are strong, which ones are good, which ones need help. She knows them personally. Ron, when he had cattle, I know his kids named them even. You know, they knew the cow by its name. That's whatever. I knew some of the names. I'll let it go though. They know them. Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd. I'm the one who stands there and I know my sheep. I know what every one of them needs. I know them intimately. I care about them. Some people are hired to look after sheep, and when the sheep are attacked, he just runs away because it's not his sheep. That's what he just said. But he said, that's not me. In fact, I know my sheep so much. I love them so much. I'll die for them. I'll put myself in the way of the wolf. I'm going to look after them. You've got some security if you're following Jesus, is what he says. I know who you are. I know what you need. I know how you're doing. I know everything about you. That's the comparison. And that's what he wants them to know. There is nothing out of control. Your life might feel out of control right now. You may not know where you're going, but here's the thing. The sheep don't always know where they're headed. The sheep don't know where the next pasture is, but the shepherd does. And so it's okay, because he's going to lead them to the next spot. He's going to find them water. He's going to find them food. He's going to find all their stuff. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that we're not alone, that we're not just on our own, that we're not just making up this whole thing by ourselves, that we're actually being cared for. The things that are happening in your life are being given to you either because they bless you or because they'll strengthen you. But you're not out of control. Somebody is helping you. I was talking to someone about a month ago, and their life is really chaotic right now. Like just, you can't imagine all the bad things that have happened to this poor woman. It's just one thing after another, but she believes in God. And so she said, here's my favorite phrase I've found lately, and I just hold on to this. When the next bad thing comes up, I just keep reading this and I keep remembering it. When I first saw it, I thought it was kind of hokey. I thought it was kind of, but I liked the idea of it. She said, I read this every day. It says, good morning, this is God. I'll be handling all your problems today, and I don't need your help. She said, I read that every day. And I think to myself, there's a God who knows my problems. And there's a God who's looking after me. And he doesn't need me to sort things out. He'll sort it out in his time. And because I know that, I'll keep going. That's the picture of someone who knows that they have a light and that they have a good shepherd with them. Someone looking after them. In the Psalms, we're told that the Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore. That's Psalm 121, 7 and 8. God is looking out for you. Can you believe that? Lots of times I think we worry and wring our hands and we fret because we think, I don't know the future. Well, you don't, but somebody does. There's one who does know the future who's looking after you. You may not see the reason for what's going on right now, but later you will. God is a good shepherd. Jesus is a good shepherd. He's going to look after you. One of the most given commands in the Word of God is do not be afraid. And the reason we're not afraid is because we're not alone. That's what Jesus wants you to remember. The third thing that Jesus offers to us is he says, I give you access to God. This is the third analogy and the third thing he says. And when he says this time he says, I am the door and I am the resurrection and the life. The door one comes from that passage we've just been in where he's been talking about being the good shepherd. John chapter 10. Just back up a few verses, and he says in verse 7, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep." He is the gate for the sheep. How is Jesus a gate? Well, the picture is this, that if you've got all your sheep back at home, you've got pens and you've got whatever for them, but when the sheep are out in the pasture in Israel in those days, they had temporary sorts of pens. They had pens built out of rock, just big rock circles where they'd herd all the sheep into the circle. And then the shepherd at night, once he got all the sheep in and he'd counted them all and made sure they were all there, you know what he did? Theoretically, he laid across the doorway so that nothing got to his sheep unless they went through him. He is the door. He became the door by sleeping in the doorway. Jesus says, I am the door. I am the door for the sheep. All who've come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep haven't listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He says, I'm the one who lets people in and out. I'm the one who gives them access. I'm the one who allows them to come in and go out and find pasture and be peaceful. I'm the gate. I'm the door, he says. That's an important thought. The other one there says, I am the resurrection and the life. This is chapter 11. This story is about Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Three of his best friends. Lazarus has died. Jesus has gone to be there. Martha grabs him and says, where were you? Why didn't you show up earlier? You could have saved him. You could have healed him. You could have made him better. And Jesus says, oh, don't worry, Martha. He will rise again. And she says, well, I know he'll rise again on the last day. I mean, they believed in resurrection. Even before Jesus showed up, the Jews believed in the resurrection. But he says, no. I'm going to bring him back. I am the resurrection and the life, is his comment there. And I like that last one. I told you at the start, lots of people like the idea of God, right? If you run into anybody on our streets, most people, I don't know about most, but we'll say a majority of people would say they believe in God. Most people think there's a supreme being somewhere, something, someplace, right? Lots of people like that idea. Less people like the idea of Jesus, because Jesus asks them to do things. Jesus asks them to be a certain way. A lot of people don't like Jesus, but they like God. Jesus says, you know what? It doesn't work. I am the one who takes you to God. I am the door. I'm the one who provides resurrection and life. I'm the only way to God. You can't have him without me. You've got to know Jesus to have access to God. Back when Peavey Mart was still here, and we'll just take a moment of silence for Peavey Mart, if you would. Back when Peavey Mart was here, Sarah worked with a lady whose husband was the manager of Peavey Mart. Sean Cruikshank was his name, I think. Was it Sean? Thank you. Sean Cruikshank was his name, and he managed Peavey Mart. Come Christmas time, Sean did something that I really appreciated. Sean, at Christmas time, would invite people he knew to come to the store at 7 o'clock on Sunday night when the store was closed. And he'd give us access to the store and say, you can buy anything as a Christmas present for you or your friends at 50% off. And so I loved Sean Cruikshank. We'd go in there and it was the best part of Christmas. I'd run all over Peavey Mart filling up stuff. And the only way I got to do that, though, is because I knew the manager. Right? That's the only reason I got to do it. It wasn't because I was their best customer. It wasn't because I spent the most money. It wasn't because I would use the tools more than anybody else. It was simply that I knew the manager. And because I knew the manager, I had access to Peavey Mart when it was closed. Silly illustration, but Jesus says the same thing here. He says, the only way you're getting to God is through me. This is the only option. I am the door. I'm the resurrection. You've got to know me. You've got to follow me. You've got to listen to me because I'm the only path in. That's the only way home. Again, C.S. Lewis one time said, one road leads home and 1,000 lead into the wilderness. That's the truth. There are lots of options, but they don't lead in the right place. Only one leads us home. Jesus says, I'm the door. Do you want to go see God? You got to come through me. I'm the door. I'm the resurrection. I'm the life. So these are the things that Jesus says. He says, I'm the one who's going to give you an abundant life right now. You're chasing 1,000 things that aren't filling you up. Do you want to find what's going to fill you up? Find me. I am the one you need, because I am the one who's doing these things for you. I'm the bread and I'm the vine. I'll give you what you need. He says, I'm also the one who's going to give you security. You don't have to worry if you follow me, because I'm the one who's the light, and I'm the one who's the good shepherd who's looking after you. And he says, if you want to go home to God, I'm the one who gives you access there too. I'm the door, and I'm the resurrection. Now, those of you who've been counting might realize we've only done 7 of them. I told you there were 8 statements. There's one more. Jesus also said, and you might be thinking of this, Jesus one time said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. That is Jesus' statement in John 14, verse 6. This is why we need to know him. This is why we need to read the word. This is why we need to get to know him. This is why we need to listen to the things he says. This is why we need to allow him to grow in our lives. Because everything we are looking for, both now and eternity, is provided by him. The temptation is going to be to live your own life. The temptation is going to be just to follow Jesus once in a while. None of that works. Jesus says, I am the way. This is the way to go. I am the truth. I'm teaching you what's right. I am the life. This is going to give you the life now and the life later. Brothers and sisters, this isn't a really difficult lesson to understand, but it's a difficult one to follow. Can we listen to Christ? Can we walk with Christ? Can we hear his voice? Can we respond when we're supposed to? Can we do that over and over and over while he leads us home? Jesus started the entire process by saying, here's the thing, I'll give you what you need to start. I'll get your sins forgiven because of the cross. I will start there. And then the ball's in your court. Will you listen? I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's what we'll remember as Ron comes in and leads us around the table as we remember the starting point of all of this.
The book of Hebrews goes to quite lengths to describe what went on in the past. In the past, it says God spoke to our forefathers in different ways and in different times. In these last days, he spoke to us through his Son. We're just going to use a little bit of a reading here after a while, but you think about what God did in his former times. God spoke to Moses to lead his children out of Egypt. He spoke to Moses again when he was on the mountain that he would deliver the 10 Commandments. And when he was doing it, he gave him the instructions how to build the tabernacle. If you ever check that out a little bit sometimes, I'm glad he didn't give them to me. But there's many things that went on in the past. And all this, after a while, we get into the priesthood. And the priesthoods managed God's business with the holy place and the most holy place. There was just 2 compartments in it. One was where the common people would go in. And of course, the other one, only the high priest could go in, not that often, and offer sacrifice for himself and for the people. It was a place where God's presence was to be made known. And somehow the description of it seems to fill into what goes on in heaven in these days. God's presence, as Tim pointed out, was noticeable in the daytime and the night with this tabernacle. As it moved about, nations could see where the tabernacle was and where the Israelites were. So then after this, we come to something, and the thing about the tabernacle, it was very portable, very temporary, and it just must have been quite a job just with the material they had to work with. But it would move around at different times, and then the next thing God had his people do was build the temple, and it was pretty permanent, solid, and strong, but it didn't last either. So we see all these things that God did through his people in the past. He was trying to show us what it would be like if we reflect upon those things, and he explains it pretty well in Hebrews. I'm going to read from Hebrews chapter 7, beginning at 18th verse. He says, the former regulations is set aside because it was weak and useless. For the law made nothing perfect, but a better hope was introduced by which we draw near to God. And it was not without an oath. Others became priests without any oath. But he became priest with an oath when God said to him, the Lord has sworn, and he will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. Because of this oath, Jesus has become a guarantee of a better covenant. Now there were many of those priests since death prevented them from staying in office. He has a permanent priesthood. Therefore he is able to save completely those who come to him, to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Such a high priest meets our needs, one who is holy, blameless, pure, set apart from sinners, exalted above the heavens. Unlike the other high priests, he does not need to offer sacrifices day after day, first for his own sins and then for the sins of the people. He sacrificed for their sins once for all when he offered himself. For the law appoints high priests, men who are weak, but the oath which comes after the law appointed the Son, who has been made perfect forever. The point of what we were saying is this: we do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in heaven, and who serves in the sanctuary, the true tabernacle set up by God, not by man. So at this time we'll offer thanks for the loaves. Our Heavenly Father, we bow at this time, thankful for your word, thankful for the writers of the past, and how plain it is for us to understand this day. Accept of our thanks for the bread at this time. Pray in Christ's name. We offer thanks at this time for the blood that was shed on the cross for the benefit of mankind. Accept of our thanks at this time. In Christ's name.
At the start of each of the Gospels, Jesus said, "Follow me." That was his invitation. He wanted his people to follow him everywhere they went, through good times and bad, through the hard things and the celebrations. He said, "Would you follow me? Would you follow me through the waters of baptism, wash away your sins, and follow me home?" That's the invitation he gives, and he promises, "I'll be the light and the good shepherd. I'll be the door. I'll be the bread and the vine. I'll be everything you need if you do that." Can we be those people who follow Jesus this week? Thanks for watching.